Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Friends, today the sutta we are going to study is called Sakkapanha Sutta, or Sakka's questions. Sakka is the Lord of the gods, and his dialogue with the Buddha carries an important message for all the people of the world. The internal motivation for Sakka's visit to the human world was because his lifespan in the heavenly realm was ending. So you can see even in the Deva world there is impermanence. And he was shaken by his vision of death. So he didn't want to leave his Sakka status and become nobody. The external motivation was a young Deva named Gopaka. In the previous human existence, this Deva, Gopaka, was a Sakyan woman named Gopika. So when she was a devoted follower of the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. She served 3 months faithfully, giving dana and inviting them to her home. She wanted to be a man, and in her next birth, due to her good karma, she was born as Sakka's son, Gopaka. So Gopika became Gopaka. But the 3 months that she served were reborn in a lower Deva world as entertainers to superior Devas. For they had indulged in the 5 sensual pleasures while living as monks. Gopaka rebuked them, saying that although they had heard the Dhamma from the Buddha, did not practice it, while Gopika, though a lay woman, had practiced the Dhamma faithfully so that she became a mighty Deva. This shows that sex is no barrier to getting what you wish if the proper karmic activity is generated as a human being. Now, Gopaka encouraged the 3 entertainers to strive in the Deva world so that they would attain to a higher position. 2 of them struggled hard and attained anagami or non-returner state. You know what anagami is, don't you? That is the 3rd spiritual attainment in the path of the Buddha. There are 4 steps. First is stream entry. Second, stream entry means Sotapanna. Second, Sakadagami, or once returner. That is, that person, that being has to return to the human world once before, getting liberated. Then the 3rd state is non-returner or anagami. That means they don't return to the human world, but they will attain liberation from that world. So now these two struggled hard and became anagami, while one lagged behind in the lower position. Listening to Gopaka's urging the three monks, Sakka felt a powerful spiritual urgency to meet the Buddha and listen to the Dhamma before he died. Also, the two devas who became non-returners were reborn in a higher spiritual realm, that is the Brahma world. That is a spiritual one. There you don't get the sensual pleasures like in the Deva world. So Sakka felt a sense of shame as he was still in the sensual world. So Sakka came with his followers to pay respect to the Buddha. The Buddha was convinced of the sincerity of Sakka, wanting to learn the Dhamma. So Buddha was willing to teach. After getting permission from the Buddha to ask questions, Sakka asked the first question, Lord, though beings wish to be free from violence, anger, ill will, quarrels, and being ill-treated, and hope for peace, happiness, security, and freedom, why are they inclined towards both mental and physical violence? You know what it is in the world, isn't that so? So the Buddha answered, this unhappy condition is due to the fetters of envy and miserliness. Jealousy is due to the lack of appreciation of the success and goodness of others, while greed is extreme desire for gain and wealth, lusting beyond one's needs and not knowing when to stop. You know, some people go on and on and on, earning. That is the kind of person. One controlled by envy does not want to see or hear of another's prosperity, success, good looks, health, education, good fortune, popularity, etc. You know, some people don't like to hear even of other people's, you know, goodness and fortune and, you know, good fortune and so on. So, this is why, though people wish to live peacefully without hate, harming, and hostility, yet they live in hate and harming each other. Even in homes, right? In the home even, they are sometimes at loggerheads. This makes the envious person miserable here while living in this world and suffers the bad karma in afterlife. On the other hand, one who has goodwill and appreciative joy and charity is happy and even promotes others' welfare, so that after death is reborn in a heavenly world, or if she or he returns to this world, will be powerful and have many friends and followers. Miserliness, Machariya, that is the Pali word for miserliness, Machariya, makes one hide one's possessions, do not recognize the good qualities of others, do not share their knowledge. Even some teachers, you know, do not give the whole of their knowledge to the students. Buddha was not like that. Open, fully open, gave all the knowledge that was necessary for our liberation. and is extremely possessive. During the time of the Buddha, Kassapa, that is, Kassapa Buddha was the Buddha before Gautama Buddha. During that time, there was a monk living in a village. One day, another monk came there. Now, that other monk was a virtuous monk and a meditative monk. So, the resident monk was envious. When the lay disciple invited both of them for dana at his house, the resident monk went alone and gave a, fake excuse for the other monk not coming with him. The food that was to be offered to the visiting monk was given to the resident monk to take and give the other monk. But he dumped that food by the wayside. So after that, people came to know about it and they refused to, give dana to him, so that he suffered in this world, and after that, he suffered in hell for a long period. And even when he became a human being much later, was never able to satisfy his hunger. Later, Venerable Sariputta took pity on him. He was a small boy at that time, but starving on the road. And Venerable Sariputta saw him and ordained him, thinking that that would help him. But until he died, he never had a square meal, even as a monk. Though he had by that time attained arahantship. Now see, he had the good fortune, because he was a monk earlier, to, even though he did not practice very well, still he had done some good, so that he was able to attain arahantship. But only on the last day when he was about to die, that he was able to have a square meal. This story shows the frightful karmic consequences of miserliness. Now Sakka's second question. Lord, what is the cause of envy and miserliness? What is their origin? How are they born? How do they arise? How do we remove them? Now Buddha answered, they arise from liking and disliking. These are mundane forms of craving. If those objects were not present, there would be no envy or ill will. Now the objects, you cannot get rid of objects, can you? Only thing is you have to get rid of the envy. So we envy a person whom we dislike, especially if she or he owns valuable objects that we also like. The miserly person does not want others to have his kind of wealth, or even be close to his associates and friends. Jealous men and women frown on their spouses if they even engage in friendly conversation with the opposite sex. So, miserliness is rooted in love and hatred. Now, don't think that when Buddha says liking and disliking is the cause, you must not like anybody. It is not that. Disliking, of course, yes. You should not dislike people. But liking you could, but without attachment. That is the place where we make the mistake. Now Sakka asks the third question. Lord, what gives rise to like and dislike? How do they arise and how do they not arise? The Buddha answered, the cause of love and hatred is desire. Not the wholesome desire, but the desire associated with pleasure and craving. That is called Tanha Chanda. Chanda is liking, Tanha is craving. Because of desire, we tend to measure things and our self, self within inverted commas, because there is no real self actually. So, what do we measure? What we are, what we had, what we will have, etc., against others, comparing and contrasting. Then we see a lack, that we lack something, and that brings dukkha to us, that brings suffering to us. And we want to fill that gap. As this sense of lack is rooted in ignorance, it has no end and no bottom. So, it can never be filled or fulfilled. We just keep on wanting more and imagining other lacks. Other than what we lack now, we lack other things also. So anyway, now Sakka asked the fourth question. How does desire originate? The Buddha answered, it is through discursive thinking. It is called vitakka. That is rambling, going from one topic to another. Even in meditation, you find that we sometimes do that, then we find that it is not possible to concentrate. So, dividing into I and you, pleasant and unpleasant, etc. It is broken by thinking of dividing things, putting them apart, instead of seeing them as part of what we are, seeing the oneness. Do we ever see the oneness of things? Even the environment, it is something that is part of us. If the environment was not there, do you think we would have enough to eat, to live on? So we have to be grateful for that. We create from our memories, biases and ignorance, the sense objects, so that we create our own world. Each individual has this creation of the world that being lives in. Each one has his or her own world. Now Sakka asks the fifth question. What gives rise to thinking, vitakka? The Buddha answered, it is due to proliferation of conception and perception. These are two negative ways of thinking. When conceiving, the mind creates what is not there. Don't we do that quite often? And so make up our present world. When we see a form, we see only the visual form. Whether it is animate or inanimate, we only see that form. But reflecting on it, thinking on it, brings greed. That is tanha, conceit, mana, and views, ditti. Later, thinking about it brings desire, if it is something that you like. Then desire gives rise to love and hatred. How? If you want and if you can have it, you love it. If you can't have it, then hatred. One becomes a prey to envy and ill will that brings frustration and suffering. When perceiving, now we talked about conceiving, now it is perceiving. When perceiving, we bring up the past memories in the way we remember them, not the truth, how we remember them, and thus project the past into the present. Together, these two, conceiving and perceiving, keep us living in the past or going into the future, leaving us nothing of the present. The way to avoid pleasant but unwholesome feelings is to be mindful at the moment of seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, etc. We should know that feeling, perception, and consciousness, when these three things come together, then we have the feeling, right? So the object, the internal faculty, i.e. ear, nose, and so on, and consciousness, they always come together. Feeling, consciousness, and perception come together. But they are always impermanent. They are not permanent. Sakka asks the sixth question. How does a monk end proliferation? Now, this refers to a monk, but it is also, relevant to lay people. Buddha answered, mental proliferation arises when a contact is made through the sense faculties. Because one takes delight in it, welcome it, and hold on to it, the underlying tendency to lust increases. If the contact causes aversion, doubt, etc., then one has repulsive feelings. When there is feeling, whatever, good or bad, one thinks about it. When what one thinks about, that one proliferates mentally. It is thought of with respect to past, future, and present objects that come to the senses. The ordinary person thinks this proliferation brings happiness. Then the Buddha says there are two kinds of happiness. Now the word happiness has a Pali word, somanassa. Now what is that? Two kinds of happiness? The kind to be pursued and the kind to be avoided. The same applies to unhappiness and equanimity. While obtaining happiness, if the unwholesome factors increased, that should be avoided. Now can you see? Now something is very pleasant, but it is, it creates only unwholesome things in our mind. Then best thing is to avoid it, however much you may like it. If the wholesome factors increased, that should be followed, for it will help in our meditation too. Sorrow is domanassa. Happiness is somanassa. Sorrow is domanassa. Or mental pain is caused by brooding over what is negative, immoral, causes suffering, or is unhelpful. For example, sorrowing over death. Can you bring back the dead person? Now, why do we actually cry and, beat our breasts and, lament when someone dies? Why? Isn't it through selfish reasons? Because of oneself, not because of the person who is dead. If you think it well, you will see the truth of that. So anyway, sorrowing over death or an unavoidable loss. If it is lost, it is lost. You can't help it. Or natural change. Now, like one's looks, when we were 20 years, we were beautiful and, youthful and vigorous and all that. Now what? Now, after so many years, when we are old, we have changed. So one's looks change, health, friendship, all these change. Or even events like the weather. Now say you plan to have an outside party, and then suddenly there is a big shower of rain and you blame the weather and everything, and then you get unhappy and angry. But what is the use? So, or a traffic jam. Some people, even I have seen some people, at a traffic jam, how upset they are. So you see, these are unwholesome habits that increases unwholesomeness. While wholesome sorrow, now see, there is unwholesome and wholesome. Now, wholesome sorrow, now look at that, is our response to what is positive. For example, not being able to restrain the senses. Now we plan to restrain our senses and suddenly we come out with something, and then, we say something or we do something and we regret it later, right? Or we let go of, something like thoughts of lust and hate. We want it not to arise, but lust and hate arises. Or we want to go to a retreat and we are unable to go due to an illness, or due to an illness in the house, or some other reason we cannot go. So these are wholesome sorrow, you see. So now equanimity means upekha in Pali. When we let go of our thoughts, that means both good and bad. When we let go of all our thoughts, our mind is very light. Joyful peace arises. And then we can get in touch with our true self. You see, this, what we show, what we are now living is not our true self. So, on a deeper spiritual level, equanimity refers to the first and second jhana, where thinking and proliferation is abandoned. In a later sutta, I will be doing the jhanas with, something to do with the jhanas. Sakka asked the seventh question: how is a monk restrained by the rules of discipline? That is called the Patimokka for bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. Now Buddha answers: the restraint in bodily and verbal conduct, that is sila. Also restraint about the four requisites, that is the robes, food, shelter and medicine. Right? Now Sakka asks the eighth question: do all religious teachers teach the same doctrine, practice the same discipline, and pursue the same goal? The Buddha said no. They do not teach the same things, and they do not have the same morality, or share the same belief, or seek the same goal. Now Sakka asks the ninth question: what is the reason for this? Buddha answers: it is the numerous elements. All teachers have their mental inclinations and arrangements, hold fast to their certain views from their different cultural and psychological experiences. So they teach different things, have different goals, etc. Now Sakka asks the 10th question: have all teachers reached the ultimate goal? Buddha answers: not all have reached their goals. Only those freed by the destruction of craving can be said to have reached the end, total security from bondage, reached the ultimate goal. Now that is the last question that Sakka asked. The climax of the sutta is that while listening mindfully to the Buddha, Sakka sees impermanence and non-self. He attains stream entry. You know, stream entry means Sakkapanha. 3 fetters are removed. What are the 3 fetters? This is the one about self, that we think that we have a self. That is removed. Sakkaya Ditti. Then the second one is the adherence to rites and rituals. That, you know, we think that some people think that you can gain liberation by adhering to rites and rituals. No. Then third, doubt, vichikicha. These 3 are removed. So Sakka attained stream entry while listening to the Buddha. He avoids reacting negatively to his expected death, because earlier he was very upset about his death. But while listening to the Buddha, he was not concerned, right? So he was wholesomely prepared for the last moment of life as Sakka. Now he was prepared. That is how we should be. So we hear of Sakka dying. Now while listening to the Buddha, he died. Now you know that there is no body like ours, right? No physical body. So that though he died, there was no body. Now what happened? And while experiencing his own death, also experiences the rebirth. What is the rebirth? In the continuation of his consciousness as Sakka. He became again Sakka. Did you all understand? So, we hear of Sakka dying and becoming Sakka again. He was overjoyed at attaining stream entry, continuing as Sakka, and the assurance that he will end all suffering. For he would become a non-returner at the end of his career as the new Sakka and attain Nibbana. Because he will go into a spiritual world, Brahma world, when he becomes a non-returner. At the end of the dialogue, all the other devas who accompanied Sakka also attained stream entry. Now what do we gather from this sutta? 1. There is violence in the world because of envy and miserliness. Why is there violence? Because of envy and miserliness. The second one, the cause of envy and miserliness is liking and disliking. The third one, the cause of love and hatred is desire associated with pleasure and craving. The fourth one, desire arises due to discursive thinking. Fifth one, the thinking is due to proliferation of conception and perception. 6. To end proliferation, one must obtain happiness through wholesome factors and abandon the unwholesome factors. 7. In order to make good karma, one should be restrained in bodily and verbal conduct. 8. To reach the ultimate goal, one should end craving. 9. To fulfill one's wishes, one needs good karma, and other matters like gender are irrelevant. 10. It's important to be mindful in everyday life and also at the time of death. And so we come to the end of the sutta discussion. So I'm not going to ask you now if you have any questions, but I want to ask you if you would like to do a little meditation. Okay, so And also, before I forget, I think it was mentioned in your invitation too, that next time our Sutta discussion will be at 1 o'clock in Canada and US. But in other countries, it will be at the same time. So remember that before you, come to the next one. So let us now do a little bit of meditation, and after that you are welcome to ask me questions. This won't take a long time. At least I hope so. But I must tell you before we start that you can expand this even to 1 hour, as you like, right? Later on when you know the meditation. Now, I think this is mindfulness meditation of the body and mind. So, you can sit on a chair or a cushion or in any comfortable position, as you like. Then, see that your head, neck and back are straight. Let us scan our body. Now, this is called scanning the body, but it is mindfully looking at the body and mind. Close your eyes. Now sit with confidence and a clear intention. Our intention is to keep the mind and body together. Keep your hands in front on your lap. Allow your shoulders to be relaxed and chest to be open so that air can move freely. While meditating, be conscious of your posture. If your head tends to fall, be mindful enough to bring it back to the correct position. Now, be aware of your palms, fingers, and back of your hands. They are very sensitive and very, very useful to us. See if they are warm or cold. Feel the energy in them. Allow your face to relax. Take a couple of deep breaths. Take your awareness down to the parts of the body in contact with the cushion or chair. Feel the hardness or the softness of the cushion, etc. Feel the weight of the body, the solidity of the body on the cushion, chair, or wherever you are sitting. Be aware of the soles of your feet. Allow them to soften and relax. Slowly let your awareness move up the ankles and lower legs. Let the muscles of the lower legs relax. Let the awareness move up to the knees. They are bent, so sense the joints. Now move to the upper legs. Include your buttocks and lower part of the body too. Now bring your awareness to the base of your spine. Feel the sensations there. Trace the curve of your spine up to the base of the skull. Relax the muscles on either side. Allow your shoulders to relax. Bring your awareness to the top of your arms and slowly down to your hands. Use the sensations in your hands to feel the vitality in your body. Hands and body are combined. Now, bring your awareness to your belly. Slowly move up to your chest. Feel the rising and falling of the chest and belly. This fall and rising is due to the breath entering and leaving. Move the awareness to your throat. and face. Feel the sensations there. Now, take your awareness to the top of your head. See if you can feel the sensations there. Bring your awareness back to the face and be aware of the air against your face. Now, notice the process of breathing in and out.